I knew the end was coming the day Ryan walked in wearing a vest that cost more than my first car, smelling like sandalwood and unearned confidence. He looked around the server room, my sanctuary, my fortress, the humming heart of a billion-dollar logistics empire, and crinkled his nose like he'd just stepped in dog shit. "It's a bit industrial, isn't it, Karen?" he asked, tapping a polished loafer against the raised floor tiles. "You need to pivot toward a more agile, cloud-native aesthetic." I didn't roll my eyes. I've been in this game too long for amateur theatrics. I just took a sip of lukewarm breakroom coffee that tasted like battery acid and despair. "Ryan," I said, keeping my voice as flat as a heart monitor on a corpse, "this room processes 40,000 orders an hour. It secures the payroll for 3,000 families. It doesn't need an aesthetic. It needs cooling and electricity." He gave me that condescending smile, the one they teach in MBA programs right after how to fire people while using the word family. "That's the legacy mindset we're trying to disrupt, Karen. My father built a great foundation, sure, but we're building a spaceship. Great, a spaceship." The kid couldn't even pair his AirPods without calling the help desk, and now he was Captain Kirk. "My name is Karen. Yes, go ahead, get the jokes out of your system. I'm a 55-year-old woman in a field dominated by hoodies and bros who think hygiene is an optional DLC. I'm the systems operations manager. It sounds fancy, but what it really means is that I'm the janitor of the internet. When the website crashes at 3 a.m. because a marketing intern uploaded a 4K video to the homepage, I fix it. When the warehouse scanners stop talking to the inventory database because of a solar flare or a squirrel chewing a fiber line, I fix it. I've been the invisible glue holding this company together for 15 years. The original CEO, Ryan's dad, let's call him Big Jim, he knew what I was worth. He was a rough-edged guy who started this business with one truck and a mortgage he couldn't afford. He respected grit. 10 years ago, he got hit by a cyber attack that nearly wiped us off the map. Ransomware, nasty stuff. While the expensive consultants were running around screaming, I locked the doors, isolated the network, and rebuilt the core infrastructure from backups I kept on literal magnetic tape in a fireproof safe. I didn't sleep for 4 days. When the dust settled, Big Jim called me into his office, poured 2 fingers of whiskey, and asked me what we needed to do so this never happened again. That's when we built the control server. Think of it as a dead man's switch or a nuclear football. It's a central dashboard that ties everything together: warehouses, billing, website, security. But here's the kicker: Big Jim was paranoid. He was terrified of a rogue employee or a hacker taking over the keys to the kingdom. So he had me code in a specific protocol, a heartbeat. My master admin account has to check in with the server. If my account is disabled or if I don't log a specific encrypted token sequence every 48 hours, the system assumes the worst. It assumes the cockpit has been breached, and it initiates safe mode. Safe mode sounds nice, right? Safe. Cozy? Wrong. Safe mode is a scorched earth protocol. It shuts down external traffic. It freezes warehouse manifests. It locks the financial gateways. It turns the entire digital footprint of the company into a brick to prevent data theft. It's a suicide vest designed to save the body by killing the brain. Only 2 people can override it, Big Jim and me. But Big Jim had a stroke 6 months ago. He's alive, recovering slowly in a place with manicured lawns and nurses who speak in hushed tones. And in his absence, the board appointed Ryan, the visionary, the disruptor. Ryan doesn't know about the dead man's switch. He didn't read the technical documentation. He thinks legacy means useless. By the way, before I get into how this train wreck unfolded, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and honestly, seeing the numbers go up is the only dopamine hit I get these days. Plus, 95% of you are lurking in the shadows like a shy raccoon, and I'd appreciate the company. Thanks. So, back to the spaceship. For 3 months, I watched Ryan dismantle the culture Big Jim built. He fired the warehouse manager who knew every driver by name and replaced him with an algorithm that routed trucks into rivers. He spent $2 million on a rebranding campaign that looked like a toddler attacked a whiteboard with a Sharpie. And through it all, he kept looking at me like I was a stain on his sleek, modern glass wall. I was the no person. Can we migrate the entire database to this new startup cloud service by Tuesday? No, Ryan, that's legally impossible and technically suicidal. Can we stop requiring 2-factor authentication? It slows down the sales team. No, Ryan, unless you want the Russians mining Bitcoin on our payroll servers. He hated it. He hated that I knew where the bodies were buried. He hated that the staff respected me. But mostly, he hated that he couldn't just disrupt me away because he didn't understand what I actually did. I started seeing the signs. You know the ones. The sudden performance review meetings scheduled for Friday afternoons. The passive-aggressive emails where I was CC'd but not addressed. The new junior sysadmin they hired, a kid named Tyler who wore skinny jeans and thought Python was just a snake, who kept asking me for my passwords just for documentation purposes. I gave Tyler the passwords to the printer network. Let him have fun with the toner levels. One afternoon, I was eating a sad tuna sandwich at my desk watching the server load balance perfectly because I had tuned it like a Stradivarius when HR walked in. Not the nice HR lady who brings cupcakes on birthdays. The other HR. The Terminator HR. Woman named Linda whose smile never reached her eyes like a shark in a pantsuit. Karen, she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. Ryan would like to see you in the conference room. Bring your laptop. My stomach dropped. I knew this feeling. It's the same feeling you get when you hear a weird grinding noise in your car's engine on the highway. Something critical was about to snap. I looked at my screen. The control server dashboard was glowing green. All systems nominal. Sure. Linda, I said, wiping a crumb off my lip. Let me just lock my station. I walked down the hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry hornets. I passed the break room where I'd celebrated 15 Christmases. I passed the server room door, hearing the familiar whine of the cooling fans. I felt like a captain being asked to walk the plank of her own ship. I walked into the glass-walled conference room. Ryan was sitting at the head of the table, looking at his phone. Didn't even look up when I entered. Tyler, the skinny jeans junior, was sitting next to him, looking nervous, sweating through his vintage band t-shirt. Sit down, Karen, Ryan said, finally sliding his phone across the mahogany table. I sat. I didn't open my laptop. I just folded my hands on the table, hands that had typed millions of lines of code, hands that had physically carried servers up 3 flights of stairs during the flood of 18. Making some structural changes, Ryan began, using his serious CEO voice. We feel that the IT department needs fresh energy. A new direction. We appreciate your service, but we feel your skill set is no longer aligned with our strategic vision. Translation, I said, cutting through the sludge. I'm too old, I'm too expensive, and I tell you no too often. Ryan's jaw tightened. This is an at-will employment state, Karen. Don't need to debate the semantics. This is a termination, effective immediately. Linda slid a thick envelope across the table. This outlines your severance package. It's contingent on you signing a non-disparagement agreement and facilitating a full handover of credentials today. I looked at the envelope, then I looked at Ryan. He looked smug. He thought he had won. He thought he was cutting out a tumor, not realizing he was slicing the aorta. Ryan, I said quietly, does your father know about this? My father is on medical leave, he snapped. I am the acting CEO. My decisions are final. Okay, I said, but before we do this, there's something you need to know about the infrastructure. There's a protocol, save it, Ryan interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. Tyler here is fully certified. He can handle the protocols. We just need the admin keys to the central server. The control server. I looked at Tyler. The kid looked like he was about to vomit. He knew he wasn't ready. He barely knew how to reset a router, let alone manage a nationwide logistics network. Ryan, I tried one more time because I'm a professional, and because despite everything, I loved this company. The control server isn't just a computer. It's a system. If you remove me without the proper transition sequence... Stop, Ryan stood up, leaning over the table. Stop trying to make yourself indispensable. You're not, you're an obstruction. Hand over the credentials or we fight the severance. I stared at him for a long, silent moment. I saw the arrogance. The complete lack of respect for the machine, for the work, for the people. And something inside me snapped. Not a loud snap. A quiet metallic click like a lock engaging. All right, I said. I opened my laptop. You want the keys? You got him. I logged into the admin console. Interface was clean, simple, my design. I created a new superuser account for Tyler. I assigned him full privileges. Here I said, spinning the laptop around. Tyler, put in your new password. Tyler's shaking fingers typed in something probably like password 123. Now I said, I'm transferring the root ownership to this account. I typed a command. The screen flashed, transfer complete. Great, Ryan said, checking his watch. See, was that so hard? One last thing, I said, closing the laptop. My account. You want me to disable it, right? Obviously, Linda said, security policy. Right, security policy. I didn't tell them. I didn't tell them that the heartbeat script specifically looks for my unique user hash. I didn't tell them that transferring admin rights doesn't transfer the dead man's switch. I didn't tell them that the moment my account status flipped to inactive, a 15-minute timer would start silently ticking in the background code. I stood up. Well, that's it then. Please hand over your badge and phone, Linda said. I placed them on the table. My badge worn smooth at the edges. My company phone, which had rung at every family dinner for a decade. Good luck, Ryan, I said. You're going to need it. We'll be fine, he sneered. Don't let the door hit you. I walked out of the conference room. I walked past my desk without looking back. I walked out of the building into the bright, harsh afternoon sun. I got into my 2015 Honda CR-V, threw the severance packet in the passenger seat and turned the key. I checked my watch, 2:15 p.m. The system checks for my heartbeat every 15 minutes. I had just logged out for the last time. The countdown had begun, and the spaceship was about to crash land. Let's rewind the tape a bit, shall we? You need to understand that this didn't happen in a vacuum. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment execution. This was a premeditated murder of my career, plotted out on a whiteboard filled with words that mean absolutely nothing. The first time I met Ryan, strictly speaking, he was 12 years old. He came to the office with Big Jim, played Minesweeper on a receptionist's computer for an hour, and then complained that the mouse was sticky. I gave him a wet wipe and told him not to eat Cheetos over the keyboard. He looked at me then with the same disdain he had in the conference room today. Some things never change. When he came back as interim CEO, the first thing he did was remodel the executive wing. He tore out the mahogany and put in glass, so much glass. It looked like an Apple store had a baby with a fish tank. He wanted transparency. Irony is dead, folks. About a month into his reign of terror, the incidents started. And by incidents, I mean Ryan breaking things and blaming me. Picture this, it's a Tuesday. I'm deep in the SQL database, manually optimizing query times because our order volume had spiked 20% thanks to a promo I told them the server wasn't ready for, but they ran anyway. My phone rings. Karen, the Wi-Fi is down in the conference room. I'm trying to stream a TED talk for the motivational lunch, Ryan says. Ryan, the Wi-Fi isn't down. You're likely on the guest network, which throttles streaming to prioritize warehouse operations. Switch to the secure internal network. I don't have the password for that. Why is it so complicated? Just open it up. I can't just open up the corporate network, Ryan. We have PCI compliance standards. If I remove the encryption, Visa will fine us $10,000 a day and revoke our ability to process credit cards. Silence. Then, you're being an obstructionist, Karen. Just fix it. He hung up. 10 minutes later, I get an email from Tyler, the skinny jeans wonder. Subject, Wi-Fi update. Hey Karen, Ryan asked me to look into the router settings. I reset the firewall rules to default. Streaming works great now. I nearly choked on my gum. Resetting the firewall to default meant he had essentially unlocked the front door and put up a sign saying free data, please Rob US. I sprinted, literally ran, to the server room. I had to kill the external connection, restore the backup configuration, and patch the hole before a botnet sniffed us out. It took me 20 minutes. Later that afternoon, I got called into HR. Linda sat there with a notepad. Karen, I've had reports that you cut off internet access to the executive wing today during a critical meeting. I was patching a massive security hole that Tyler created, I explained, my blood pressure rising to levels that would worry a cardiologist. He exposed the entire internal network to the public web. Linda scribbled something. So, you admit you took down the service without authorization? I admit I saved the company from a lawsuit, I snapped. Karen, Linda sighed. Giving me that look you give a toddler who just threw spaghetti on the wall. We need you to be a team player. Tyler is new. He's innovative. He thinks outside the box. You're very rigid, that was the word. Over the next few weeks, rigid became my brand. I was rigid when I refused to give the marketing team admin access to the live website so they could tweak the CSS on the fly. I was rigid when I insisted that we couldn't store customer social security numbers in a Google Sheet shared with anyone with the link. I was rigid when I told Ryan that buying 500 cheap EOT smart bulbs for the warehouse was a bad idea because they utilize a notoriously insecure protocol that can be used as a gateway for DDoS attacks. You're just afraid of the future, Ryan told me in the hallway, adjusting his sleek, rimless glasses. Everything is security this and protocol that. You need to learn to move fast and break things. Ryan, I said, we are a logistics company. If we break things, people don't get their insulin. People don't get their baby formula. We aren't Facebook, we're infrastructure. He just chuckled. That's a very legacy way of thinking. Then came the Performance Improvement Plan, PIP. If you work in corporate America, you know what a PIP is. It's not a plan to improve your performance. It's a paper trail to justify firing you without getting sued. The document was laughable. Goal 1, demonstrate a more collaborative attitude toward cross-functional synergy. Translation, stop telling marketing they're idiots. Goal 2, reduce incident response times by 50%. Impossible without cloning myself. Goal 3, documentation and knowledge transfer. That last one was the red flag. Flare gun in the night, knowledge transfer. They wanted me to dump my brain into a wiki so Tyler could read it and pretend to be me. I sat in my cubicle, which was cluttered with old hard drives, tangled CAT5 cables, and a fading picture of my cat, Mr. Spock, and I felt a cold knot of dread. They were going to do it. They were actually going to do it. I pulled up the file on the secure drive. Protocol Omega V2, PDF, was signed by Big Jim. Clause 4A, in the event of a leadership vacuum or detected compromise, the system's operations manager, Karen M., is designated as the primary incident commander. System integrity is tied to her active authentication. I stared at the signature. Big Jim's scrawl was messy, bold. He trusted me. He knew that the only thing standing between his company and chaos was my rigidity. I printed the document. I highlighted the clause. I walked into Ryan's office and placed it on his desk. What is this? He asked, not looking up from his iPad. It's the disaster recovery policy your father signed, I said. You need to read it. Specifically the part about my role in maintaining the encryption keys. He glanced at it for half a second, then slid it into the recycling bin. We're rewriting all the policies next quarter, Karen. That's obsolete. Just like the servers downstairs. He didn't read it. He threw away the warning label on the bottle of poison he was about to drink. That was the moment the sadness turned into something else. It turned into a cold, hard resolve. I stopped arguing. I stopped trying to fix Tyler's mistakes. When the smart bulbs disconnected the warehouse scanners because they flooded the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum, I just logged the ticket and waited 4 hours to fix it. Why the delay? Ryan demanded. I was documenting the synergy. I said he hated it. He hated that I was technically complying while watching the ship take on water. So, when Linda called me for that final meeting, I wasn't surprised. I was almost relieved. I was tired of fighting for a king who wanted to behead his own knight. But as I drove away from the office, watching the glass building shrink in my rearview mirror, the relief started to curdle into anxiety. The clock was ticking. 14 minutes left. I thought about the warehouse in the state. The night shift crew, Big Mike, the forklift driver who always asked about my mom. Sarah, the dispatcher who was working double shifts to pay for her wedding. When the system goes dark, their screens go black. The scanners stop beeping. The labels stop printing. The conveyor belts stop sorting. Chaos. I wasn't just punishing Ryan, I was punishing them. My hand hovered over my phone. I could call the help desk. I could call Tyler. I could say, hey, you moron, you need to run the override auth command immediately or the whole company goes offline. I pulled into a gas station. I sat there, engine idling. Do I save them again? Do I play the hero one last time for a company that just threw me in the trash? I looked at the severance envelope on the passenger seat. Terminated effective immediately. No, I whispered to the empty car. They wanted disruption. They wanted to break things. I put the car in gear and merged onto the highway. Let it break. I drove home in silence. No radio, no podcasts, just the hum of the tires on the asphalt and the thumping of my own heart. It's a 45-minute commute from the office park to my place, a small ranch house that smells like vanilla candles and cat litter. That drive is usually my decompression chamber. Today, it was a countdown timer. Let me explain exactly what happened in that conference room. Technical details that Ryan and his merry band of idiots glossed over because they were too busy staring at the severance check. When I opened my laptop to transfer the keys, I didn't just give Tyler a password. I initiated a root-level migration. In the world of enterprise systems, you don't just hand over the keys, you have to rekey the locks. The system, which I built from the ground up after the great ransomware fire of 2015, operates on a trust but verify model. The core kernel, the brain, checks for digital signature every 15 minutes. That signature is attached to my user profile. It's a heartbeat. Thump thump, is Karen here? Yes. Thump thump, is Karen still authorized? Yes. When I created Tyler's account, the system flashed a warning. A big, ugly, yellow box in the terminal window. Warning, transferring root privileges does not migrate security heartbeat. Primary incident commander, Karen M., is still required for kernel stability. Proceed? I had paused. I had looked at Ryan. Ryan, I had said, pointing at the screen. See this warning? It says the system still needs my signature to verify stability. If we don't recode the heartbeat to look for Tyler instead of me, it's going to panic. Ryan had sighed, checking a notification on his Apple Watch. Karen, stop trying to confuse us with technobabble. Tyler will reconfigure the heartbeat later. Just give him the access. We have a board meeting at 4. Tyler, I had asked, looking at the kid, do you know how to reconfigure the heartbeat daemon in a Linux environment using custom Perl scripts? Tyler had puffed out his chest. I know Linux. Sudo apt-get update, right? I almost laughed. That's like saying you know how to perform open heart surgery because you know how to put on a band-aid. Okay, I had said. I hit Y, then enter. Root access transferred. Primary user Karen M status, pending termination, that was the trigger. The moment Linda from HR disabled my Active Directory account, the clock started. The system would try to ping my account. It would get a user disabled response. It would try 2 more times. Then it would assume I had been compromised, fired, or kidnapped, and it would execute Protocol Omega. I pulled into my driveway at 2:50 p.m. The termination was processed at 2:15 p.m. My access was likely cut by IT Ops Tyler at 2:30 p.m. The first heartbeat failure would be at 2:45 p.m. The second at 3 o'clock p.m. The lockout begins at 3:15 p.m. I walked into my house. Mr. Spock, my fat tabby cat, greeted me with a demand for food. I poured him some kibble, my hands shaking slightly. I wasn't shaking because I was scared for myself. I have savings, I have skills. I can get a job fixing servers for Bank by Monday. I was shaking because I knew what Protocol Omega actually did. I sat down at my dining room table and opened my personal laptop. I couldn't log into the company network. That would be illegal now, but I could access the public-facing website. www.logistics.co.uk.com, it was up. A hero banner showed a stock photo of a smiling truck driver. The track your shipment bar was working. It was 3:05 p.m., 10 minutes. I went to the kitchen and poured a glass of cheap Pinot Grigio. I don't usually drink in the afternoon, but today was special. Today was the funeral for my career, and I was the only one attending. I thought about calling them. I really did. I pulled up Tyler's number in my contacts. I could text him, hey, you need to run the script /usr/bin/heartbeat override sh immediately. He would probably ignore it, or worse, Ryan would claim I was trying to hack them. She's trying to backdoor into the system. Block her number. I put the phone down. They wanted disruption, I said to the cat. They wanted to move fast. I refreshed the browser. 3:14 p.m., still up. 3:15 p.m., I refreshed. The page loaded a little slower. I waited. 3:16 p.m. I clicked track shipment. A spinning wheel, it spun and spun and spun. Then a generic error message, 504 gateway timeout. And so it begins, I whispered. I took a sip of wine. It tasted like victory with a strong aftertaste of guilt. The silence in my kitchen was heavy, but I knew that 20 miles away, inside that glass-walled office, the silence was about to be shattered by the sound of phones ringing. All of them. At once. You might think a server crash looks like it does in the movies, sparks flying, screens going black, sirens blaring. In reality, it's much more subtle and much more terrifying. It's silence where there should be noise. It's stillness where there should be motion. I opened a tab for the vendor status portal. This is a public dashboard we host on a completely separate server Oz to let our biggest clients know if we're having maintenance. Since it's external, it wasn't down, but it was reading the internal health status. At 3:20 p.m., the status light started flipping. Warehouse North, degraded. Warehouse South, unresponsive. API Gateway, critical. Payment processor, timeout. It looked like a Christmas tree catching fire. Here is exactly what was happening inside the spaceship right now. Protocol Omega is a containment strategy. It assumes the network is compromised. So the first thing it does is revoke trust. Every digital certificate, the ID cards that computers used to talk to each other, was revoked. The web server tried to talk to the database to look up an order. Database, who are you? I don't know you. Blocked. The web server tried again. Blocked. The web server panicked and crashed. In the office, this would manifest as the internet is slow. Ryan was probably tapping his expensive mouse, annoyed that his Spotify stream of hustle grindset beats was buffering. But in the warehouses, that's where the bloodletting was happening. Our warehouses are automated. Robots move pallets. Scanners tell humans where to put boxes. When the certificates were revoked, the scanners went blind. Picture Big Mike on the forklift. He scans a pallet of medical supplies. The scanner usually beeps and says aisle 4, baby. Instead, the scanner screen turned red. A single message, hard-coded by yours truly 10 years ago. System lockdown. Contact administrator. Error, dead man trigger. Big Mike probably tapped the screen. Then he probably radioed the floor manager. Hey, my scanner's dead. Mine too, says Sarah. Mine too, says everyone. Suddenly, you have 50,000 square feet of inventory and no way to move it. The conveyor belts automatically stop as a safety precaution when they lose connection to the central brain. The hum of the warehouse, the lifeblood of the company, died. Back at my dining table, my personal cell phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah, the dispatcher. We're Facebook friends. Hey Karen, you work today? Everything just froze, even the time clock. Managers are freaking out. I stared at the text. My thumb hovered over the reply. I don't work there anymore, Sarah. Good luck. No, too bitter. I'm out of the office. Too vague. I didn't reply. I couldn't. If I engaged, I became liable. If I offered help, I was tampering. I had to be a ghost. At 3:45 p.m., the real pain started. The vendor portal on my screen updated again. Email server, offline. VoIP phone system, offline. Protocol Omega shuts down the internal communication channels to prevent the hackers from coordinating or stealing data. This meant that inside the office, Ryan couldn't email Tyler to ask what was wrong. He couldn't call the help desk because the phones ran over the internet, and the internet was currently locked in a digital panic room. They would have to physically walk to find each other. I imagined Ryan storming out of his glass office, yelling for Tyler. Why is my email down? I'm expecting a term sheet. Tyler, sweating through his band t-shirt, would be frantically typing on his keyboard, but he wouldn't be able to log into the admin console. Why? Because the admin console requires two-factor authentication via the server that just locked itself. He was locked out of the cockpit. The plane was flying on autopilot, and the autopilot was programmed to land in the ocean. I poured a second glass of wine. I wasn't enjoying this. Okay, maybe 10% of me was enjoying this. The petty part. The part that had been called rigid and legacy. But the other 90% was horrified. I knew the cost. Every minute the warehouse was down cost the company about $8,000 in lost productivity and late penalties. We were at 30 minutes. That's $250,000. Gone. Poof. Then the first phone call came. It wasn't Ryan. He was too proud. It was Big Mike. He had my personal number from that time his car broke down in the lot and I helped him jump it. The phone rang, vibrating against the wood of the table. Caller ID Big Mike. I let it ring. Use your head, Karen. Don't answer. Ring, ring. He's a good guy. He has 3 kids. If the company goes under, he loses his pension. Ring. I picked up. Hello, Karen. Thank God. Mike's voice was loud, echoing against the silent warehouse walls. Listen, something's wrong. The whole system is bricked. The screen says dead man trigger. The managers are running around like headless chickens. Are you seeing this, Mike? I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm not at work, I know. Can you remote in? We got trucks lined up at the dock. Drivers are getting pissed. Mike, I said I can't remote in, I don't work there anymore. I was fired 2 hours ago. Silence on the line, heavy stunned silence. Fired you? Who the hell is running the system? Tyler. The kid with the skinny jeans? Oh Lord have mercy. Mike laughed a dry, dark sound. So that's it then? We're screwed? Pretty much, Mike, unless they figure out the override. They won't, Mike said. Can't figure out how to refill the coffee pot. I'm sorry, Mike, not your fault, Karen. Hey, that dead man trigger? That sounds like something you built. I can neither confirm nor deny that. Heh, all right. I'm gonna go tell the drivers to take a nap. Sounds like we're gonna be here a while. He hung up. I put the phone down. The vendor portal turned completely red. System status, lockdown. The spaceship hadn't just crashed, it had buried itself in the ground. While I was sipping Pinot Grigio, the IT department, now consisting of Tyler and a terrified intern named Josh, was likely experiencing a level of adrenaline usually reserved for skydiving accidents. I can reconstruct the scene perfectly because I know the room and I know the people. The war room is a small, windowless box next to the server farm. Whiteboards on every wall. Tyler is typing furiously. Login, admin password, XXX, access denied. Account locked, try root. Ryan is yelling, standing behind him. Just use the master password. I am. Tyler's voice is cracking. It's not accepting it. It says authentication server unreachable. Ryan pulls out his iPhone to call the external support vendor, a company called Tech Squad that we pay a retainer to mostly for printer repair. He looks at his phone, no Wi-Fi. He switches to 5G. He dials. Yes, this is Ryan, CEO of Logistics Co. You're experiencing a glitch. We need immediate assistance. The Tech Squad guy on the other end, probably eating a burrito, asks, have you tried turning it off and on again? We can't turn it off. Ryan screams, we can't even log in to turn it off. Enter the CFO. Let's call him Gary. Gary is a numbers guy. He doesn't care about synergy or spaceships. He cares about cash flow. Gary bursts into the war room. He's holding a printout. Ryan, why are the payment gateways down? I just got a call from Visa Merchant Services. We've flagged a fraud prevention stop. They're rejecting every transaction. It's a technical glitch, Gary, Ryan says, wiping sweat from his forehead. Tyler is handling it. Gary looks at Tyler, who is currently hyperventilating. He looks like he's handling a stroke, Ryan. Where is Karen? The room goes silent. The fans in the server room next door whine louder as if mocking them. Karen is no longer with the organization, Ryan says stiffly. We are pivoting. You fired Karen? Gary's face goes the color of a balance sheet written in red ink. You fired the only person who understands the legacy stack today? In the middle of the quarter close, she was toxic. Ryan defends himself. She was holding us back. Right now, Gary says, pointing at the monitor that displays a giant red padlock icon, she seems to be the only thing that was holding us up. Back at my house, I decided to check my LinkedIn. Might as well update my profile. Open to work. I typed a new headline, Senior Systems Architect specializing in disaster recovery and executive incompetence management. Too spicy? Maybe. I deleted the last part. Suddenly, my personal email pinged. It was an email from Tyler, sent from his personal Gmail account because the corporate mail was dead. Subject, urgent question, PLZ help Karen. I know you left and stuff, but the server is doing something weird. It says Protocol Omega. Is that bad? Do you have the password to stop it? Ryan is yelling at me, please. I looked at the email, the poor kid. He was just a pawn, a sacrificial lamb in skinny jeans. But if I gave him the password, I broke the lesson. And legally, if I gave him the password and he typed it in wrong and deleted the database, I could be sued for unauthorized interference. I replied, Tyler, I am no longer an employee of Logistics Co. and do not have authorization to access or discuss proprietary systems. Please refer to the Disaster Recovery Protocol V2 document stored in the physical safe in the server room. The code is 1234. Yes, really, best Karen, I knew what was in the safe. A binder, a red binder. On page 1 of that binder in bold, 24-point font, it says, in the event of system lockdown, do not attempt to force reboot. Hard reboot will trigger data wipe to prevent theft. Contact primary incident commander immediately. I waited. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It wasn't Tyler, it was Ryan. Karen, his voice was tight, controlled, like he was holding a grenade. Hello, Ryan, to what do I owe the pleasure? I believe my exit interview was concluded. Look, we're having a small hiccup. The system seems to have entered a safe mode. Oh, that sounds secure. Good for you. Karen, cut the crap. We need the override code. Now. Ryan, I said, putting my feet up on the chair next to me. I don't have the code. The code is generated by a rolling algorithm on my RSA token, which I turned in. Remember, you put it in the envelope. Silence. The token, he whispered. The little black fob on my keychain, I reminded him. The one you said was clunky tech. Where is it? I heard him ask someone in the room. Where is the envelope? I heard rustling. Papers falling. Linda took it to HR. Tyler's voice in the background. HR is locked. Ryan yelled, the electronic door locks are on the network. I smiled. Sounds like a pickle, Ryan. But I'm sure you'll disrupt your way out of it. Karen, wait, I hung up. I wasn't being cruel. I was being educational. They had the token. They just couldn't get to it because they had fired the person who kept the doors open. Irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. I checked the clock. 4:30 p.m. The bank closes at 5 o'clock p.m. If the daily reconciliation file didn't reach the bank by 5 p.m., the company would default on its revolving credit line. Gary, the CFO, knew this, and that's when the legal threats would start. At 4:45 p.m., the spaceship wasn't just stalling, it was taking on water. We supply some major retailers. Big box stores, you know the ones. They don't tolerate delays. Their supply chain is optimized to the minute. If our trucks don't show up at their distribution centers within a 30-minute window, they fine us. Heavily. And right now, our trucks were sitting in our lots, engines cold, because the drivers couldn't get their manifests. I checked Twitter or X, whatever. A driver had posted a video. At Trucker Joe, stuck at Logistics Co. Depot. Gates are locked. System down. Nobody knows what's going on. Hash logistics fail hash unpaid waiting. It had 500 likes. Then the customer complaints started. At Mega Mart help. Hey Logistics Co. Our dashboard shows 0 inbound shipments for tomorrow. Care to explain? Inside the executive suite, the atmosphere had shifted from panic to terror. I know this because Gary, the CFO, called me at 4:52 p.m. Karen. Gary sounded like he had aged 10 years in 2 hours. Please tell me this is fixable. Hi Gary, it's fixable, but not by Tyler. Ryan is threatening to sue you, Gary said, his voice lowered to a whisper. He's on the phone with General Counsel right now. They're talking about sabotage and malicious interference. Let them talk, I said calmly. Gary, you remember the board meeting from 3 years ago? The one where we approved the cyber defense budget? Vaguely. Look at the minutes. Look for the dead man protocol. Look at who signed off on it. It wasn't me. It was the board and Big Jim. What does it say? It says that the system is designed to lock down if the primary commander is removed without a qualified successor and a 30-day transition period. Ryan fired me with 0 notice and replaced me with a junior admin. He triggered the company's own immune system. Gary was silent. He's a smart man. He was connecting the dots. So legally, I interrupted. I followed the termination procedure. I handed over credentials. I left the premises. The system is doing exactly what you paid me to make it do, protecting itself from an unauthorized takeover. Ryan is the unauthorized takeover. Jesus, Gary breathed. If we don't transmit the ledger to the bank in 8 minutes, we breach our debt covenant. The bank can call the loan. Owe them $40 million, Karen. We don't have $40 million cash. Then you better find a crowbar, I said. A crowbar to get into the HR office, to get my RSA token. But even with the token, you don't have the PIN. And I'm not giving the PIN to Tyler. What do you want? Gary asked. Finally, the right question. I don't want anything from you, Gary. But if Ryan wants his company back, he needs to ask me himself. Not with a lawyer, with an apology, he won't do it. His ego is too big, then hope he likes bankruptcy court. The bank closes in 7 minutes. I hung up. My heart was racing. This was dangerous. I was playing chicken with a $40 million loan. If the company collapsed, my stock options, which I still held, would be worthless. I was hurting myself too, but this was about more than money. It was about the principle. It was about every time Ryan had called me legacy. It was about every time he had ignored a safety warning because it wasn't sexy. 4:58 p.m. The bank deadline passed. Technically, they had a grace period until morning to explain the error, but the automated flags at the bank would already be tripping. Missed transmission, risk alert. At 5:15 p.m., a courier arrived at my house. Fast. I opened the door. It was a bike messenger. He handed me a letter. Cease and desist to Karen M. Immediately surrender all access codes. Liable for damages. Criminal negligence. It was signed by the General Counsel. Ryan had chosen war. I took the letter. I walked to my kitchen. I took a photo of it next to my glass of wine and the screen showing the red system lockdown banner. I didn't post it. I just saved it. Evidence. Then I called my own lawyer, a guy named Saul, not that one, but close enough. Saul, I said, I need you to look at my employment contract. Specifically the clause about constructive dismissal and indemnification for automated security protocols. Karen, Saul sounded amused. What did you do? Nothing, I said. I just stopped doing everything. And now the world is ending. While I was reading my cease and desist letter, a very different meeting was happening in the executive boardroom. This information comes to me courtesy of Gary, who texted me the play-by-play later that night after 3 scotches. Ryan was pacing, shouting, she hacked us. She planted a logic bomb. We need the FBI. The general counsel, a sharp woman named Alina, was reading the red binder. The one they had finally retrieved from the server room safe after Tyler used a screwdriver to take the hinges off the HR door to get the key, so yes, they literally broke in. Ryan, Alina said, her voice cutting through his shouting. Sit down. Don't tell me to sit down. I'm the CEO. You're the acting CEO, Alina corrected him. And right now, you're the primary suspect in a catastrophic governance failure. What? Ryan stopped pacing. I'm reading the Protocol Omega documentation, Alina said, adjusting her glasses. It says here, clear as day, system stability relies on the continuous authentication of the system's operations manager. Removal of this user without a 30-day parallel run results in automated lockdown. She looked up. Did you do a 30-day parallel run? No, Ryan scoffed. We're agile. We don't do month-long handovers. Did you read this document before you fired her? I glanced at it. It looked like technical bloat. Alina slammed the binder shut. This technical bloat is a binding security policy signed by the chairman of the board. By violating it, you didn't just fire an employee, you violated the corporate charter. Ryan paled, but she didn't warn me, did she? Alina looked at Gary. Gary pulled up his email archive on his phone using his personal data plan. Actually, Gary said, I found an email from Karen dated 2 weeks ago. Subject, risk assessment of rapid personnel changes in IT. She explicitly lists loss of root auth as a critical risk. I must have missed that one. Ryan stammered. I get a lot of emails. You replied to it, Gary noted. You said, stop being a blocker, Karen. The room went silent. This was the smoking gun. Ryan hadn't just been negligent, he had been willfully negligent. He had been warned in writing and had dismissed the warning as blocking. So, Alina said, rubbing her temples, if we sue her, she will produce this email in discovery. She will produce the signed policy. She will argue that the system is working exactly as designed to prevent an incompetent takeover. And she will win. And the press will have a field day. CEO breaks own company because he didn't read the manual. Ryan slumped into his chair. The spaceship captain was realizing he had forgotten to close the airlock. What do we do? Ryan asked, his voice small. We surrender, Gary said. We call her. And not with threats, we beg. I can't beg, Ryan said. Makes me look weak. You are weak, Alina snapped. And right now you're costing us $100,000 an hour, call the chairman. The chairman of the board is a guy named Robert. He's 70, golfs with Big Jim, and has zero patience for disruption. They got him on speakerphone. Robert, Gary said, we have a situation, the grid is down. Karen is gone, Ryan fired her. He did what? Robert's voice boomed. Who's running the ops? Tyler, the boy with the hair, good God. Put Karen on, she's at home. Ryan sent her a legal threat. Rescind it, Robert ordered. Get her on a video call now, offer her whatever she wants. If this isn't fixed by morning, Ryan, don't bother coming in. So at 6:30 p.m. my laptop rang. It was a Zoom invite. Subject, emergency resolution meeting. Attendees, Ryan, Gary, Alina, Robert, board. I looked at the invite. I looked at my half-empty bottle of wine. I went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face and put on a clean blazer over my pajama pants. I put on my headset. I clicked join meeting. The screen populated. Ryan looked like he had been crying. Gary looked exhausted. Alina looked like she wanted to kill someone. Robert, audio only, was breathing heavily. Hello, I said cheerfully. How is the synergy going? Karen, Alina started, smooth and professional. We seem to have a misunderstanding regarding the terms of your departure. No misunderstanding, I said. I was terminated. I left. The system missed me, so it locked the doors. It's very loyal. We need the override, Ryan grunted. Just give us the code. I can't, I said. I told you, I need my token. And even with the token, the system requires biometric verification. My fingerprint. On the server room console, physical presence is required to lift a level 5 lockdown. So come in, Ryan said. Come in and fix it. Why should I asked. I'm not an employee, I'm a liability. You have a cease and desist against me. We rescind it, Alina said quickly. Consider it shredded. That's a start, I said, but I'm still unemployed and I don't work for free. We'll pay you for your time, Gary said. Consulting rate, double your hourly. I laughed. Gary, honey, you're losing millions. Double my hourly is peanuts. What do you want? Robert's voice came over the speaker. Name your price, Karen. I leaned back in my chair. I had them. I didn't just want money. Money is easy. I wanted justice. Here are my terms, I said. One, I held up a finger. I am not coming back as an employee. I don't trust the management. I looked directly at Ryan. I come back as an independent consultant. My company, which I just registered 10 minutes ago on LegalZoom, will bill you. Fine, Gary said. What's the rate? $500 an hour. Minimum 100 hours guaranteed. Paid upfront. Gary winced but nodded. Done. 2, I held up a second finger. I want a formal written retraction of my termination, stating that it was an error in judgment by executive leadership, to be placed in my personnel file and emailed to the entire company. Ryan's head snapped up. I'm not sending an email saying I made a mistake. Then the system stays down, I said. You can explain to the shareholders why the stock dropped 15% tomorrow. Do it, Ryan, Robert barked from the speakerphone. Fine, Ryan hissed. I'll send the email. 3, I continued. And this is the non-negotiable one. Complete autonomy over the system's operations department. No synergy interference. No disruption unless I approve the change management ticket. I report directly to the board, not to the CEO. Can't cut me out of my own company operations? Ryan protested. I'm not cutting you out of operations, Ryan. I'm cutting you out of IT, because you've proven you don't know the difference between a server and a toaster. You can play with marketing. You can design the logos, but you do not touch the infrastructure. This is ridiculous, Ryan sputtered. Robert, she's holding us hostage. She's holding the keys to the car you drove into a ditch, Robert said. Agreed. Ops reports to the board until further notice. And finally, I said, 4, I want my severance package doubled. As a signing bonus. You just said you weren't an employee, Alina pointed out. Consider it a pain and suffering fee, I said. For the stress of watching you destroy my life's work in an afternoon. They muted the microphone. I saw them arguing. Ryan was waving his arms. Gary was pointing at his watch. Elena was typing furiously. I took another sip of wine. I watched the clock. 7 o'clock p.m. The night shift at the warehouse was supposed to start soon. If they couldn't clock in, we'd lose a second shift. They unmuted. We agreed to terms, Elena said. I'm emailing the contract now. Please DocuSign immediately. And the wire transfer, I asked. Gary is initiating it. You'll have the confirmation number. I waited. My inbox pinged. Document, consulting agreement K. Miller. I opened it. Was all there, $50,000 upfront. Full autonomy, retraction of termination. Then another ping. Wire transfer confirmation, $50,000.00. I smiled. All right, I said, I'm getting in the car. Hurry, Gary said. I'll be there in 45 minutes, I said. And Ryan, what? Have coffee ready. Black, and tell Tyler to stop typing. If he touches one more key, I'm charging an extra 10 grand. I closed the laptop. I stood up. Felt lighter. I wasn't just the janitor anymore. I was the landlord. I drove back to the office. The sun had gone down. The glass building was dark, literally because the smart lighting system had also failed. I pulled into my spot. I walked up to the front door. My badge didn't work, obviously. Ryan was waiting there to let me in. He looked defeated. His vest was wrinkled. His hair was messy. You enjoyed this, didn't you? He muttered as he held the door. Ryan, I said, walking past him without stopping. I didn't enjoy it, but I did predict it. There's a difference. I walked to the server room. The war room smelled like nervous sweat and stale pizza. Tyler looked at me like I was the Messiah. Karen, oh my God. I tried sudo reboot, but it said SHH. I silenced him with a finger. Go sit in the corner. I walked to the main console. It was glowing red. System lockdown. Authentication required. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my RSA token, which Gary had sheepishly handed to me when I walked in. I scanned my fingerprint on the biometric reader. Beep. Identity confirmed. Karen M. I typed in the master override sequence. It's not a password. It's a line of poetry Big Jim and I picked. The ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are for. I hit enter. The red screen flickered. It turned amber. Then, slowly, beautiful, glorious green. Restoring services. Database connected. Network online warehouse scanners active. Somewhere in the city, Big Mike's scanner probably beeped. We're back, Tyler cheered. I ignored him. I turned to Ryan. It's fixed, I said. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a consulting invoice to generate. The sound of a server room coming back to life is music to me. It's a rising crescendo of fans spinning up, hard drives clicking, and the rhythmic blinking of activity lights. It's the heartbeat returning to the body. I sat in my old chair, which Tyler had lowered, the heathen, and watched the dashboards turn green one by one. The phones outside started ringing immediately. The backlog of angry customers. Someone answered those. I barked at the room. Ryan looked around, realized he had no staff left, and actually picked up a phone. Logistics Co., please hold, he said, looking miserable. I spent the next 6 hours scrubbing the logs, clearing the error queues, and manually pushing the bank files through a secure FTP channel. I got the confirmation at 2:00 a.m. The loan was safe. The company would live. At 3:00 a.m., I finally leaned back. Gary walked in with 2 coffees. He looked like he had survived a war. Here, he said, handing me one. Black, thanks, Gary. You saved our ass, Karen. I saved the system, Gary. Your ass is still on the line with the board. He chuckled darkly. Yeah, Robert is calling an emergency session for Monday. I think Ryan's interim title is about to be revoked. Not my problem, I said, taking a sip. I'm just a consultant. The next morning, the email went out. From Office of the CEO to all staff subject. Update on yesterday's outage team. Due to a procedural error in executive decision-making, we experienced a system-wide lockdown yesterday. I would like to formally apologize for the disruption. We have retained Karen Miller as lead systems consultant to ensure stability moving forward. We are correcting the oversight immediately. It was short. It was painful. It was perfect. I didn't go back into the office the next day. I worked from home. My new contract said I could work from anywhere I damn well pleased. I logged in at 10:00 a.m. in my pajamas. I checked the logs. Tyler had tried to install a crypto miner on a test server. I blocked his IP address and sent him a Slack message. Don't, he replied, SRY. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail, not from a lawyer, from the rehab center, handwritten, shaky handwriting. Karen, Robert told me what happened. Sorry about the kid. He's got his mother's impatience and my stubbornness. Bad mix. Thanks for keeping the ship afloat. Use the extra cash to buy something nice. You're the captain now. Jim, I pinned the letter to my corkboard, next to the photo of Mr. Spock. So, here I am. I'm making double what I used to make. I have 0 meetings with marketing. And Ryan was reassigned to special projects. He's currently in charge of brand outreach, which I think means he manages the Instagram account. I blocked him there too. The moral of the story, if you're going to fire the person who holds the keys to the kingdom, make sure you change the locks first. And never, ever call a woman legacy when she's the only one who knows how to keep the lights on. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a server to patch. And this time, I'm billing for the overtime. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.